Good evening there, everybody. I want to welcome you to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here tonight to do the look back at a classic rock album, show I do every Monday night. Been doing it now since the beginning of the channel, so almost probably about three and a half years now I've been doing this. The album we're doing tonight we were supposed to do last week, but I decided I wanted a little more time with it, so we're going to do it this week. So it's Supertramp's debut album. I really like that cover. I mean, I went to school for horticulture, so anything like that kind of cranks me up. Anyways, this is a very different Supertramp album from what most people have come to know as Supertramp. So you have that kind of the poppy stuff, mainstream poppy stuff that started with Breakfast in America, mostly with Breakfast in America, and continued into Famous Last Words, I think. And then you had the three albums before that, which were Crime of the Century, Crisis What Crisis, and Even in the Quietest Moments, which were a little bit different, a little bit more progressive, maybe a little bit less commercial sounding. This one is probably a little bit less commercial sounding than those. Lots of interesting tracks on here. I didn't initially like this album, to be honest with you, other than the cover I liked right away. But other than that, I didn't really like it at first. I didn't think it sounded like Supertramp at all. And I was hoping for more of Crime of the Century, but that's a one-time album, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, I've warmed up to it considerably, so it's been on my playlist for about 5 months now, and long enough for me to be fairly familiar with most of the tracks. I did another listening today and just kind of made some notes about it and stuff. So anyway, we're going to start with the information on the album first. So I'm going to turn up my light on this one a little bit. Can't read it. So this was released on August the 14th, 1970. So yeah, for me, it was a bit of a surprise because I've actually had that surprise a couple times with Supertramp. The first time when I bought Breakfast in America, that was the first album I owned. I thought that they only had one album before that. And then I found out, no, they had several albums before that. But I knew that they'd gone back to 1974, but I kind of thought of them as a new band. And then I find this one, which goes back to 1970. So they're as old as Genesis, even almost as old as Genesis. Anyways, recorded, the studio was recorded, that was Morgan, Willensden in Willensden. It's considered progressive pop or art rock. I can see why they come up with that label. Definitely has a lot of that element on this album. It's about 47 minutes in length, which is fairly lengthy for them. This might be the longest one up to this point that I've listened to by Supertramp, and produced by Supertramp too. So they did all the production on it. So appearing on this is a very different group of people than what people have come to know. So there's a couple of common factors, of course. Richard Davies on organ, piano, electric piano, harmonica, and backing and lead vocals as well. You've got Roger Hodgson on bass guitar, acoustic guitar, cello, flageolet, I think that's how you say it, and lead and backing vocals as well. So he's not playing any piano on this album or any keyboards, but he has taken over the bass guitar. Well, he didn't take it over, he was playing it originally. And then you have Richard Palmer, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and Bella Laska, backing and lead vocals as well. And the last member of the band is Robert Miller on drums and percussion. So not as much of that, what we would come to know Supertramp for, a lot of that sax and other types of instruments. You don't get none of that here. This is a more stripped down version of the band, but a little bit more melodic and a little bit more pastoral in nature, maybe folky, a little bit of folkiness here. Definitely a lot more proggy than some of their other stuff too. Perhaps that's the reason why I like it so much. Anyways, we're going to start. I'll give you a little kind of a overview of the album first. So you've got this album that is very different from the original from the Supertramp that we've come to know and love. This was before that time period, so it evolved obviously. So a little bit more proggy, a little bit more kind of a little bit of a folky element to their music. Not nearly as much bluesy stuff as you would come to know them for. Not as poppy, but more melodic sounding. I hear bits and pieces in this of little bits and pieces of Camel here and there, little bits and pieces of Genesis, maybe a little bit more bits and pieces of Genesis. Definitely have a Genesis feel on some of their tracks, no doubt about it for me. And then you have a little bit of that classic Supertramp sound here. Lots of decent keyboards. The drumming is superior on this album to any of the stuff on their other albums, I think. This guy is quite a good drummer, and he's more prominent, and maybe that's the reason why I think he's so good. They put him more forward than you normally get with the Supertramp drummers, or drummer, I should say. So a strong album. I do like this a lot. I gave it mostly 7s and 6s. And just a couple of songs that didn't quite measure up. But other than that, I think it's a strong album and with a strong cover, of course. And here's a picture of them on the back as well. So this is a basic original album. This is not a remastered. It says it's on the A&M record label. Does it indicate that here? I don't remember seeing that. Let me look. Go back up. Oh yeah, I did say it. It was an A&M record label. I didn't think it was for some reason. Anyways, so I'm just going to take the booklet out of the CD part. So there's really not much to this. This is just a basic thing, but it does have a picture of the 4 members of the band, which I really wanted to show you. So you've got that drummer here. I think the guy next to him is Palmer, and then you have, of course, Davies and Hodgson in there as well. So, pretty strong. I think this is a strong debut album. Some people may not share that. The other thing about the album that I was unaware of is that I think all the lyrics were written by Richard Palmer, nothing by Hodgson or Ricky Davies. So that potentially is the reason why it's a much different album than you would find. I'm going to break the tracks down a little bit. So you've got Shirley, which is the first track. It's just a short 31-second bit. It's just a voice part, basically, by Hodgson. The next track is a little bit more complex. Obviously, it's a Long Road. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's odd but interesting and has some real catchy parts to it. It's a little bit heavy at times, and there's some strong solo parts by various instruments on here too. It's got a real catchy beat, but at times the vocals are a bit on the mellow side, but it's Roger Hodgson singing again. The next tune out is called Abade, I think is what it's. And I'm Not Like Other Birds of Prey, which is the kind of slash part of the song as well. It opens with some nice keyboard and synthesizer parts with an acoustic guitar accompaniment. Hodgson, once again, doing the vocals here. Very typical Hodgson sounding, but more subdued. Not as forward in his vocals on this album as he will eventually become. It's more of a melodic, somber album with some build-up and catchy melodies at times throughout this song. Another song I liked quite a bit. So these two songs, in It's a Long Road, Abad, and I'm Not Like Other Birds of Prey. These are probably my two favorite tracks on the album. The next song, though, is very close. I did like this quite a bit, too. It's got an organ synthesizer part to open up. Hodgson once again on vocals. This is some the very reminiscent of songs off of the album Trespass by Genesis. So it's not completely like that, but definitely feels like it could fit in there. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it, because this album came out in 1970, the same time as Genesis, the same time as a lot of bands were kind of putting stuff together. And there's a similarity between what they're doing here on this track and what Genesis was doing on Trespass at the same time. The bass is a little bit more forward on this track. Catchy, but not... It's catchy, but a little bit pastoral by nature, I guess. I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah, so a little bit pastoral by nature, a little bit quieter, but it's got a catchy beat to it. This one is pretty progressive too, from the first two or three songs, which are a little bit more heavy and a little bit more musical, more melody oriented. This one's a little more progressive in nature. The next song is also a little bit more progressive. One of the longer songs on the album. Maybe I'm a Beggar. This is sung by Hodgson and Richard Palmer. Palmer's vocals are a little bit more reminiscent of moderate, deeper type vocal sound, in contrast with Hodgson's more falsetto. Although Palmer does some falsetto here too, but you can tell the difference between the two voices. His is more of a heavy sound to it. Roger Hodgson, we all know what he sounds like. This is another kind of a Trespass-like feel to it. It does pick up tempo, though, this one, a little bit more than the other one, with a nice guitar solo and Hammond organ part put together, along with a more forward drum sound. Drums are solid on this album, for sure. The next track out is probably one of the weaker tracks. Another small bit. This is the same as the first small bit, but it's a little bit long. It's called Home Again. It's a vocal song with some acoustic guitar accompaniment. It's kind of a short, folky, pastoral sound. Again, Roger Hodgson doing the vocals here. And his voice again, I don't know if you would call his voice suppressed. I wouldn't say it's suppressed on this album. What I would say is that it's not as forward as you get going forward on some of their other albums. The next song out is called Nothing to Show. I'm going to take a drink here because I can feel a cracking coming on. Yeah, so this is Nothing to Show. Another Davies and Hodgson. This is Davies' first kind of appearance doing vocals on this. So he's doing a kind of a bit of a duet sound here with Roger Hodgson's. A little bit more of a harmony part going on as well. It's a slow melodic kind of soloing keyboards towards the end of the song. Heavy guitar solo part with a beefy drum part to open this song, though. So much heavier than most of the songs on the album. Yeah, I would say this is probably the heaviest track on the album. I wouldn't call it a metal thing or a hard rock or anything, but just a lot heavier than some of the other stuff. Next up is Shadow Sons. This is just Davies on vocals here. He's got that bluesy, folky track going on, which I think he's fairly well known for. His vocals, of course, are more mainstream, a little bit more bluesy in their sound. And a lot of the kind of different instrumentations on here. And he's probably played some of the more rare instruments on here. I know I heard flute, or if I didn't hear flute, what I might be hearing, I'm just going to look something up here. It might be the Bell Alaska. I'm not sure what that sounds like. Actually, it's not occurred on here. So you've got, it could be electric keyboard or cello or flageolet. I'm not familiar with that instrument too much, but you've got a little bit of that going on here anyways. So Yeah, so this is the one track that Davey sings by himself. The next track is the other track that Palmer and Hodgson sing. This is the longest track on the album as well. The two longest tracks are Hodgson and Palmer singing. It's got a bit of a fluty type noise, possibly the Balliskia, or whatever they call it, Balalica. I can never remember how to pronounce that. I guess I should have looked that up before I came out here. A melodic organ and keyboard part, which is really good here, but it's a bit on the pastoral side. It has some interludes of heavy melodic guitar parts too. So the electric guitar, when it is played, is pretty forward. It's pretty dominant, I think. And this song kind of reminds me, towards at least the back half of it, kind of reminds me of something you would get off of a Camel album. It's good, it's solid, but it's very mellow. It's not heavy. The vocals aren't dominating, but it feels like that kind of Camel feel to it. And then we have the final song on it, which is Shirley Krepril. I don't know how you even pronounce that. Let me look. Maybe I'll look it up. Maybe I got it spelled wrong here. Oh, sorry. I thought I thought my hyphen there was, or my bracket was a C, but it's actually Reprise. So it's Shirley Reprise. So the first track on the album, which is called Shirley, is just a little bit of vocal part by Hodgson, and the last part, another vocal part by Hodgson, is a quiet, somber vocal song, but a little bit longer. This has, probably of all the songs on the album, has the most kind of classic Supertramp sound to it that you might get on Breakfast in America, or, on some of the tunes on Even in the Quietest Moment or so. So yeah, a decent song. So overall, I like this album quite a bit. It's been in my playlist, like I said, for 5 months. It's not really in a point where it's coming out or anything like that. I decided to do it now because I've been listening to it long enough that I feel familiar with it enough to kind of make a kind of assessment of it. It's a good album. I'm happy I have it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Look Back at a Classic Rock Album featuring Supertramp's debut. Please hit the like and subscribe and the notification bell if you want to be notified of the next week's album or my next episodes. And if you got any comments about the album, you can put those in the comment section below. I do apologize. This will probably come out fairly late. The MSI tends to upload much slower than my other computer, and that's when I'm making it on here today. But if you have any comments, you can do that. It'll come out as soon as it's ready, and probably in the 9, maybe the 9:15 range. Anyways, hope to see you next Monday night for another look back at a classic rock album. And have a good night. Take care.